Well, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Randy Welsh, and I am the Executive Director for the National Wilderness Stewardship Alliance. I want to thank you for coming here today for another one of our National Wilderness Stewardship Alliance coffee hours, where we bring speakers and current topics together to help share information that would be of use to the wilderness stewardship community. So today, our subject is the National Wilderness Skills Institute, an opportunity to gain training in this age of COVID, and an opportunity to have your seasonals and your volunteers and your work crews get a jump on this next summer's activities. And with me today, we have an outstanding crew of panelists who have put the National Wilderness Skills Institute together, and they're going to be here to tell us about it. So starting with Jimmy Godry, the Regional Wilderness Program Manager from Missoula with the Region 1 of the Forest Service. You want to wave for everybody, Jimmy? They probably know. All right. We have John Campbell from Region 8, who is the Regional Wilderness Specialist there as well. We have Bill Hodge, Executive Director for the Bob Marshall Wilderness Foundation. We have Dusty Vaughn, who is the Forest Service's Wilderness Program Assistant back in Washington, D.C. And let's see, I think there's one other. So Jimmy, is Nancy Taylor going to join us today?
I think Nancy may not be joining us. So I think that might be it.
Okay, so Dusty, Bill, Jimmy, and John are going to lead us through. So I just thought, Jimmy, I'm going to let you guys, I know you've got your presentation already lined up, so I'm hoping that through the course of this conversation, you're going to explain what the National Wilderness Skills Institute is, how it got started, who's it intended for, what's it take to participate, and what kind of goals and objectives, outcomes you expect from it. And then we'll take conversation questions from the audience after you've had a chance to share with us the information. So I'll go ahead and turn it over to you, Jimmy.
Hey, thanks. I think we actually had Bucky up first.
Okay. All right.
Hello, everybody. My name is Bucky Imsall, and I'm here to pull you into an exciting event, the National Wilderness Skills Institute, May 24th through 28th online. At the start of each field season, wilderness and river managers, field rangers, and partner organizations come together in each region to learn new skills, share experiences, and connect with one another. Classes include visitor use interactions and management, campsite and solitude monitoring, history of public lands, wilderness and river designations, law, regulation, and policy, comprehensive river management plans, wilderness stewardship performance and character monitoring, minimum requirements analysis, a screening of the Dark Divide movie, and my personal favorite, crosscut saws, and many more. Please visit wildernessstewardship.org/NWSI to learn more, register, and help us spread the word. Registration closes on April 30th. Hope I can say that I saw you there. And now I'm going to pass it over to my friend, John, who's going to tell you more about the background.
Hey, so I'll kick us off, I think. Thanks, Bucky. You can see we're having fun with this. So we're all going to take turns here, and I just wanted to share a little bit about the background of this type of training, and I'm hoping, Dusty, you might share the web page as we talk. Thank you. Hey, so a couple of years ago, I did this trip up to the Flathead, and I came across a book called A Job with Room and Board, Memories of an Early Montana Forester. Anybody read that here? It's kind of book that's a great read if you're into Forest Service history, and especially if you're in a remote cabin on the edge of the Bob Marshall Wilderness Complex with time to spare. And no Zoom. You know, what caught my attention was the life of an early Forest Service Ranger and the lack of spending time on Zoom and Teams meetings. And the book was set in the 1920s to 30s era, so 100 years ago. And there was a quote that came from the author's time in Wisconsin, Region 9, and it caught my attention. So what he says is, because we had no outside source of men trained in our technologies, training became an ever more important Forest Service activity. We continued to have ranger training schools for temporary firefighters and for all sorts of training activities. So 100 years ago, the Forest Service was talking about training and technical skills, and you could probably guess why it caught my attention, because I think we could write something similar today, although I think I wouldn't highlight the word men so much, obviously. I think our target audience is much broader in this day and age, but I think the need for technical skills remains. And many of us don't come to this work with the skills we need to do in wilderness. Whether you're a volunteer or a partner or an agency employee, the skills you need to potentially make awkward public contacts or dig a drainage bar or dig a drainage dip or install a bar on a trail, or to pull the end of a crosscut saw. Many of us don't show up to the job with these skills. And so the investment that was spoken about in the book I mentioned, I think is an investment we still have to make today. I thought I'd share a little bit about my experience in working with the Forest Service and connect it to training needs and then go from there. I've worked for the Forest Service for almost 30 years. And I share my background not because I think it's unique. I think it was probably the norm for some time, and it informs, I think, the way I think about our training needs, as well as some of the others who've helped pull this training together. I think today, the backgrounds of people are much more diverse than they were when I first started, and we all come to the job with a different set of skill sets. And so it's worth starting off noting that I was a city kid. So when I came to the agency, my skills were much more limited than I felt my counterparts were showing up with. I started as a volunteer working for the Forest Service my first season. And it was a dream job, working in the field 10 days at a time. When I started my season, though, the district I worked on invested in me with a week's worth of training. And then they invested in me by providing significant on-the-job training, or OJT, as we often call it within the agency. But I always felt like I could use more. And the investment that the district put into me in training, I think, made me feel valued. It helped me build my resume for the future. But it also helped me at that time decide that this was the career path I wanted to take, right? So I worked for several more years in similar circumstances, mostly learning from peers, coworkers, and others on the district I was on, the skills I needed to do my job. I think I continued to feel like I needed more, but honestly, training opportunities were just not that available at the time. We're talking about the early 90s, not quite the technology we have today or the ability to share and pair skills, so to speak. And so after a few years, I found myself working in Colorado, and after working there for a season, I was rewarded, quote unquote, rewarded with the opportunity to attend the Region 2 Wilderness Ranger Academy. Now, many people know it as the Region 2/Region 3 Wilderness Ranger Academy. And over the course of my 10 to 15 years in the region there in Colorado, I was able to attend that academy pretty much every year. And again, this helped me grow my skills. I was called upon to present information to my peers. I was able to connect with staff from other forests and learn from them. I always left that session feeling completely jazzed about the season ahead and the work I did and the connection to kind of a larger program of work, so to speak. And most importantly, I go back to the point is I felt valued, right? The investment that was being put into me made me feel valued as an employee. So enough about me. That's my story. Many of you are familiar with this path, I think. I think other folks have had similar experiences. And I feel like we ask a lot of our volunteers and our partners and our seasonal employees, as well as other folks who are field going. And I still think that the work that you all do is a dream job. I think it's important work. And I think we all know that. Across the country over the, I don't know, across the regions, there have been training sessions like this over the years. And we've had these discussions at the National Wilderness Workshop. And I think that some of the folks in this meeting or will watch this video probably participated in those panel discussions we had where we shared and compared different types of trainings across the country. And there's tons of great stuff that has been going on out there. And there's tons of great stuff going on at the district and the forest level. And I want to make sure we continue to acknowledge that there is a need for training at those levels that something like the Skills Institute we're talking about can't replace. I think the intent for these regional opportunities is always to complement or add to that local offering. They can also alleviate some pressure from local staff to put on trainings and partners to put on their own trainings to help their seasonal field skill get ready for the season ahead. And you know, they can be career building opportunities again, or they can be rewards for long time volunteers or returning staff. And so with that, you know, it's worth noting a few of the regional sessions that have gone on over the years and acknowledging that what we're doing this year is building off of that. A few regional sessions that come to mind, and apologize if I missed something, but here are the things that I've been aware of. I know that in Region 2 and Region 3 of the Forest Service, they've co-hosted that Wilderness Ranger Academy. I know that in Region 5, they've done something similar. I know that PCTA has hosted a Trail Skills College annually, which has, you know, received great accolades. I know in the 1990s and 2000s that we did things called Wilderness Ranger Rendezvous here in Region 1 and I believe in Region 4 that provided some of the connection and community of practice that we're aiming for with this type of training. Wilderness Skills Institutes were born out of the Southern region, John Campbell's region here, through a partnership with U.S. Forest Service, the Southern Appalachian Wilderness Stewards, and the Appalachian Trail Conservancy to meet a need in that region because they hadn't had a regional type training like this for many years. And the partnership aspect of building that has been something we've tried to duplicate in other parts of the country as well. We're doing a Northern Rockies Wilderness Skills Institute here, and we had the Great Rivers Wilderness Skills Institute occurring in Region 9 and Region 8 a few years back, all kind of built around this principle of developing something through a partnership or a collaborative means. And then finally, I don't know if Dave Cantrell is on here, but obviously groups like the Poudre Wilderness Volunteers do trainings every year for their staff that have been noted and are also high quality. And so, you know, these sessions are all important for developing that community of practice, concept that lets us connect as wilderness, and this year, hopefully, wild and scenic river practitioners. Their skill building, and they're needed to serve as investments in you. We need to do this to invest in us, in public lands, and in wilderness. And I guess I'd say, just to kind of wrap things up from my perspective, is that up until last year, we've been pulling these off in a variety of different ways, right, across the country. And 2020 threw a curveball at us, and I think we all adapted in different ways. In some parts of the country, we didn't do a whole lot. In the northern Rockies, we decided about this time last year that we just weren't going to be able to do anything in person. In hindsight, that was probably a really good move, and pivoted to just providing information about online activities that people could do to train up. And then I know in other parts of the country, you guys pulled off successful virtual trainings. And so, for 2021, I guess I want to pass it to John, but I think we have a great opportunity ahead of us to take some of what we've done, accept the time and place we're in, and see what we can create out of it for this year and potentially for years to come. And so with that, I'm going to pass it to you, John, to talk about the core team.
Hey everyone, thanks Jimmy. As Jimmy said, I'm John Campbell. I'm the Southern Region Wilderness and Wild and Scenic River Program Manager, and I'm going to talk a little bit about the core team and the partnership that has got us to this point. I wasn't going to do this, but Jimmy kind of talking about his background, I'm just going to mention a couple of things really quick. My first job was in Utah as a seasonal wilderness ranger and trail crew member. And I was sent to the Region 2 Wilderness Ranger Academy as 2 weeks into my first Forest Service job. And I kind of thought that was one of the coolest things that I've ever done. Still look back on that session and just what that meant to me and how that helped me be successful that summer. So that was awesome. Fast forward about 10 years, I moved to Region 8, and this kind of hits more on what I'll be talking about, and quickly realized partnerships were the name of the game in Region 8. Doing a lot of great things, and as Jimmy mentioned, the partnership for the Southern Wilderness Skills Institute with Appalachian Trail Conservancy and Southern Appalachian Wilderness Stewards, really set this extremely high bar for partnerships and training opportunities. And Jimmy kind of alluded that it was my region, but him and Bill Hodge were two of the three kind of ones that were the brainchild behind that and made it successful. And I'm following in their footsteps and lucky to be doing so. So shift into my regular stuff I was going to talk about, where I'm going to kind of recognize the partnership a little bit, talk about the core team, what we've been doing, and kind of how it works a little bit, or my take on it a little bit, hopefully. So bear with me briefly while I kind of read off the core team members. It's not just the four of us on the call here that we've introduced. In addition to the four of us, Nancy Taylor is on the core team as well, the Region 6 Wilderness and Wild and Scenic River Program Manager, and Dan Abbey, who's the Arthur Carhart National Wilderness Training Center Forest Service rep. Then obviously myself and Jimmy and Dusty. And in addition to Bill Hodge, we have Angie Furman and Risa Shimoda from the River Management Society. We have Ian Davidson from the Selway Bitterroot Frank Church Foundation, Eric Giebelstein from the Southern Appalachian Wilderness Stewards, or SAWS, and then we also have Jacob Wall from the Society for Wilderness Stewardship. So there's about 10 of us on this team. We just got off one of our planning calls a couple hours ago, and as I thought about this, it's not a partnership in the traditional sense in many ways, where, at least how I think about it, where there's a cooperative agreement of some kind put in place, or we lay out specific tasks that each person is going to do, or potentially there's an exchanging of funds to make sure everyone's got the capacity, financial capacity to do this work. this was just a group of folks that got on a call in December, I think it was, and everyone agreed, everyone volunteered to do this on top of already having a full-time job. Pretty much knowing going into it, the amount of work that was going to have to be put into it. And although at times that's been a little bit challenging for all of us, I think, everyone on this team has not backed down. I can't overestimate the amount of effort and time and commitment and passion that folks put into making this happen over the last 4 or 5 months. From that initial call back in December, when the core team members kind of raised their hands saying, I'll take this on, we've been going pretty much full speed since we all got back from Christmas vacation. Meetings every couple of weeks with the core team. And then each member of the core team is either leading or a part of another sub team that's working on the 5 different tracks, which I think you'll see here in a little bit. And then also doing a variety of other tasks to make sure this happens. So I don't think we developed this team with this in mind, but I wanted to give a little pat on the back to a lot of the core team members and just kind of what I see that they bring to this team. And it worked out just perfectly. And it's another reason why bringing agency folks and outside organizations together in these partners, because everyone brings such a unique skill set that they can make these opportunities better. So a team like this always needs someone, I think, to be pushing you and to think outside the box, thinking bigger and better, kind of providing a vision and being leaders in a group like this. And I think, me personally, I think Jimmy and Bill and Risa have provided that role of, keeping us moving forward and making sure we're not offering the same things over and over again, which is a really cool part of this. On the flip side, I know Nancy's not on. The way she's able to keep us organized with her skills of basically tracking everything that's said in all of our phone calls so that we know what to do at the end of the phone call has kept us really on task, and it's been an important part of the team. Angie and Jacob with SWS and RMS, they have extensive experience planning these training opportunities, whether it be the National Wilderness Workshop or the River Management Symposium. They bring a lot of knowledge on logistics and the technical components of making this happen. So that's been extremely helpful. And Ian with the Selway Bitterroot Frank Church, I had met Ian before this, but it's been good to get to know him. And I think he's kind of a new leader and brings in some new blood to this group, and it's been great to have him. And then last is Dusty. And I literally don't think we'd be here without Dusty. His ability to listen to what's being said and then all of a sudden make it happen, usually real time, is pretty impressive. And he's been an all around just make things happen. And I skipped over Eric with SAWS. Eric's been planning or attending WSIs for I think about 8 years now. And Eric's one of those guys that I think usually raises his hand more than he should. He's a doer, and he gets a lot of good stuff done. So the team that we have is, super team, whatever you want to call it, but we have a lot of fun, but we get a lot of work done. So it's really amazing. And that partnership is really at the heart of, I think, why this is such a special opportunity. Bringing so many different people from so many different backgrounds together is so important, and it's really why I think it's going to be a success. And like I said earlier, I really think Wilderness and Wild and Scenic River programs set a really high bar for the shared stewardship model. And we continue to do that. We've all had these regional programs like Jimmy talks about, and making those inclusive with partners and lots of other people, and just doing this at a national scale is really continuing to move that bar up. So I'm very excited to be a part of it. I'm really looking forward to that week and really celebrating with the partners and the folks that make that happen when it's all said and done. And that's about all I have. I think I'm handing it off to Bill now.
That's right. Yeah, thanks, John. yeah, as Jimmy and John both outlined, it's been a heck of a team effort, and I think we've really gotten pretty tight as a group, or as tight as you can, having to talk to each other through computer screens several times a week. The emphasis behind, or the impetus behind starting this was obviously the unique scenario that 2020 and 2021 presented, with restrictions on gathering together, whether that's societal appropriate behaviors or agency mandates. But I think the idea for us is to take this need to pivot to our current environment and see what we can do with it beyond 2021. We have an incredible, I just can't get over how incredible the agenda has become, and even more exciting, the response to having the agenda out there and registration open, and having somewhere north of 450 people registered for the Skills Institute is incredible. But what do we do with that? Is this just a one-time thing? I think what we're learning just from our working together, and what we'll learn when we get together in May for this training platform, is there's a lot of shared knowledge. I have an expression that I love, that comes from a podcast that I love, which is, none of us is as smart as all of us. And thinking about using the technology that we've all been forced to adapt to through this pandemic, and what do we do with that beyond, what we hope is an end to this pandemic? And how do we continue to keep this link? I certainly hope that the Northern Rockies Wilderness Skills Institute becomes an in-person gathering again in 2022, and the Southern Appalachian Wilderness Skills Institute and the Ranger Academies across the country. I hope we're all back together in person. But wouldn't it be cool to keep the link to this community of practice, this community that loves giving back to our National Wilderness Preservation System, sort of linked? And how do we maybe think about platforms that will allow us to still learn some together while still having our, sort of regionalized and landscape specific trainings? And that's something I think that we'll continue to explore even when we get beyond this year's Wilderness Skills Institute, is what does this look like? Certainly not lost on me, given the facilities that I've been a part of with putting together the Southern Appalachian Wilderness Skills Institute, and now hopefully getting to partner with Jimmy on the Northern Rockies Wilderness Skills Institute, that we have some technology challenges sometimes in the landscapes, the places that we choose to train. And so we'll have to work through those sort of things as we move into 2022, and how we take advantage of what's clearly is a pretty excited base of volunteers, seasonal employees, wilderness and wild scenic river managers, and what do we do to connect our work together beyond this year? Because I think it's pretty clear this year is going to be a success, knock on wood, and I'm excited to see what we do with that energy for next year. So I think with that, I'm turning it over to Dusty.
Yes, thanks, Bill. Just turning off some spotlights here. Yeah, I really want to repeat a lot of what folks have said. It's been really critical. Partnerships have been a huge success. And I will go ahead and apologize. I have a puppy in the next room over, and so you may hear him crying a little bit until the kiddos get home from school. So apologies. But I am going to share the agenda with folks. So I'm going to go ahead and switch over to the agenda and kind of walk folks through this. I hope you can see it okay on your screen there. And so basically we have 5 different tracks. We have traditional skills, visitor use, wild and scenic rivers, a wilderness 1, and a wilderness 2 track. Wilderness 1 is what's been traditionally called like Wilderness 101. It's a little bit more wilderness foundations, and then wilderness 2 is building more into specifics like wilderness stewardship performance, which is a Forest Service specific program, as well as wilderness character monitoring. And so what I'm going to do right now is sort of walk us through these tracks just so you have an idea of what kind of classes that we're offering in each one of these tracks. And notice that there are gaps between tracks. We try to have at least 10 minutes between tracks if folks need to have breaks and whatnot. And I guess another thing, I'll go ahead and mention it now, that when you are registering, we're asking folks to indicate which classes you prefer, but it's not necessarily committing you to attending that class or not. It's more or less helping us figure out how many people will be present in each class. Okay, so first off, Monday kicks off at 11 a.m. Eastern time with a welcome and keynote speech. That keynote speaker is yet to be announced, but will be announced soon. And then we transition into another group session all about public lands history. Well, the Wilderness Society, Paul Sanford and Liz Vogel will be sharing with the group some of their new material about public lands history. And then I'm going to stick with traditional skills first. So first up is a class on the traditional skills. It's called Mastering the Basics and Examination of the Physics, Nuances, and Mechanics of Traditional Skills, taught by Bob Beckley and Dolly Chapman. And then followed up with Trail Maintenance Basics for Field Staff by Jess May and Carrie Wood. The visitor use track, we're going to have Linda teach us about the wonderful world of visitor use management to get us started off, and then lessons from the field. Visitor use management on the Appalachian Trail from Oregon on the Appalachian Trail Conservancy. There in the visitor use track, there are a couple of these lessons from the field, some showcases of projects that they've been working on and successes or challenges that they've had. For Wild and Scenic Rivers, there's going to be a history of the Wild and Scenic Rivers Act. And then for wilderness, sort of the same thing, a history leading up to the Wilderness Act by our own Bill Hodge here, and then followed up with some more Wilderness Act details from the recently retired Ralph Swain from Region 2, the Rocky Mountain region in Colorado. And then in Wilderness 2 track, it's going to start off with a Wilderness Stewardship Performance Overview, and then dives into the Wilderness Character Management Overview with an introduction by Peter Landris, and then followed by Kate DeVerona and the Wilderness Character Monitoring Central team. And then each day is going to close out with a happy hour. So the first happy hour is sort of a keynote discussion, and there might be some breakout rooms related to that discussion from the start of the day. That's Monday. Each day runs approximately from 11 a.m. to about 6 p.m. Eastern time. So we're trying to make sure that we accommodate all the time zones across the country. All right, so Tuesday, the first thing up is the coffee hour. Again, that's going to happen each day. This first coffee hour is all about networking. So one of the biggest things that I've gotten out of these Wilderness Skills Institutes, Wilderness Ranger Academies, has been networking. And it's not just about classes and learning some great skills or great new things. It's also about connecting with those that we're going to be working alongside, either partners or agency personnel. And so we have two of those. The first one up is on Tuesday morning, regional breakouts. And then for traditional skills, we start off Crosscut Saws 1. There are multiple Crosscut Saw classes. These are focused on the classroom portion of the Crosscut Saw certification. So you will not be ending this week with a full-blown certification. You'll still need to do the field portion of that, but at least these will cover the classroom portion of that. And then there's also a Pack Stock 1 in the traditional skills class towards the end of the day. There's another Pack Stock class later on in the week as well. For visitor use, we're going to start off with Wisdom, a 6-step process for effective public contacts from Ralph Swain, as well as Authority of the Resource from Jack Ader. And then Dr. Jeff Marion from Virginia Tech is going to do a joint session about monitoring campsite and trail conditions. So that's what this wider section means. It's sort of a joint session that groups are coming together for. And then followed up, Dr. Marion and Morgan from the Appalachian Trail Conservancy is going to do a management case study on resolving the worst Appalachian Trail camping impacts. And then following up with lessons from the field on digital kiosk and visitor use management from the Nez Perce Clearwater National Forest up in Region 1. For wilderness skills, it's going to start off with a discussion on wilderness and Wild and Scenic River resource advisors, which we use in wildland firefighting. Followed up with Kai Allen with the Bureau of Land Management, talking about wildfire incidents and Wild and Scenic River resource conditions. And then there's going to be a great discussion facilitated by Liz Townley on Wild and Scenic River management. These are going to cover things like comprehensive river management plans, Section 7 analysis, outstanding remarkable values, those things. So that's sort of divided into part 1, 2, and 3 with breaks that are consistent with other classes. And then Wilderness 1, we have Understanding Wilderness Character, again, from the great Linda. And then Wilderness Values, 4 Cornerstones and Benefits by Ken Straley and Jason Taylor. Some of you may know Ken Straley. He was formerly at the Carhartt National Wilderness Training Center. And then Jason Taylor is our Aldo Leopold Wilderness Research Institute Director. And then each day on Wilderness 2, we're going to start off with Wilderness Stewardship Performance Element. So on Tuesday, it's Natural Roll of Fire, followed by recreation sites later on in the day. And then Wilderness Character Monitoring every day at 3:30. It's going to have a session. So this next session here is called Baseline. Again, with Kate DeVerona, Jacob Wall, and the Wilderness Character Monitoring Central team. Tuesday night happy hour is all about trivia. So bring your knowledge, your know-how, and play a friendly game of trivia night. That night should be a fun night with myself and Pete Irvine, who's also on the call here today. Wednesday, we're going to start off the morning with a discussion around native land acknowledgements, and Coulter has prepared some great materials around that, and should be a good discussion. Traditional skills, again, we have Crosscut Saws 2. And then later on in the day, we have TMOs, or travel management objectives on the trail, an introduction to the back end of trail work with Jess May and maybe some representatives from the trail advisory group. And then for visitor use, we have lessons from the field, providing up-to-date data trail conditions via electronic formats. And then Dr. Troy Hall from Oregon State University is going to lead a discussion on solitude monitoring. For Wild and Scenic Rivers, Coulter Pence, again, is going to lead a great discussion around assessing, developing knowledge, skills, and abilities for river rangers. And that's kind of broken up into 3 parts. For Wilderness 1, we have prohibited uses discussion. Dan Abbey and maybe James Sipple will be a part of that. And then for Wilderness 2, we're going to invite Brenda over from our Trails program. She's going to talk about the trail stewardship performance and the 10-year trail challenge. And then she's also going to talk about the wilderness stewardship performance trails element before we also talk about the opportunities for solitude element before wilderness character monitoring gets into resources. Leave No Trace is going to host 2 sessions. This first one is an introductory, and then the second session on on Thursday is a education outreach efforts. And then Wednesday night's going to end with a special screening of the Dark Divide movie. I don't know how many of you've seen that, filmed in the Gifford Pinchot National Forest. It's a fun movie. So join us for that. And there may be a panel discussion afterwards with some of the producers and potentially some of the actors around that. So that should be another fun time. Thursday morning coffee hour, we're going to have some breakouts. There's going to be a breakout room dedicated to wilderness research from Jason Taylor. We're going to have international and global initiatives from the Wild Foundation. And then Dylan McCoy is going to talk about ArcGIS collector / field maps, some field data collection. Traditional skills, we have Crosscut Saws 3. Then we have a course led by Coulter on leaders' intent for backcountry leadership. And then Kate Courier from the Southern Appalachian Wilderness Stewards is going to lead a session on backpacking and backcountry nutrition. For visitor use, we have the Sustainable Camping and Trail Management Toolbox by Dr. Jeff Marion from Virginia Tech, and it spans multiple sessions there. And then some more lessons from the field, the Central Cascades Wilderness Permit System. Jason Fisher from Region 6 is going to teach that one. And then to permit or not to permit, addressing visitor capacity by Katie Nelson. And then minimum requirements analysis or a minimum requirements decision guide discussion from Dan Abbey, Dan Morris, and others. And then wilderness stewardship performance is going to wrap up with agency management actions on Thursday. And then this is the second Leave No Trace sessions, all about teaching tools for sharing Leave No Trace. Happy hour that night is our second regional gatherings. This one we're calling a regional virtual campfire chats, again, to kind of connect with one another in the region and maybe form some new relationships that hopefully result in some synergy going forward in the future. The coffee hour on Friday is all about micro mentoring. So we have lots of folks signing up to be mentors. If you're interested, let me know, as well as if you want to be mentored, sign up or indicate that when you sign up on the registration form. That'll help us out. For traditional skills, we have Crosscut Saws 4 and Pack Stock 2 on Friday. We are sort of still formulating this one discussion on Friday about funding programs. And Randy, I don't think we've formally reached out to you yet, but we may ask you to share some of the funding sources that NWSA has. I'll be sharing some about the Wilderness Stewardship Performance funding that the Forest Service has. And so we're still kind of forming some of these, of course. For visitor use, lessons from the field, Wild and Scenic Rivers and Visitor Use Management, David Cernicek is going to talk with us. For Wild and Scenic Rivers, the Wild and Scenic Rivers Coalition is going to be shared with Risa Shimoda. Maybe Lisa Ronald's going to join as well. For Wilderness 1, we're just kind of going to do like a quick Wilderness Stewardship Performance 101 and a Wilderness Character Monitoring 101 for that track if they had missed it on the first day. And then for Wilderness True, we have a round robin wilderness stewardship performance session where we have these quick sort of lightning talks, or you can jump into a breakout room if you just want to learn about one or two elements. But we have education, invasive species, motor mech, and cultural resources. And then one of the last sessions is sort of a what we learned, sort of a review of the week. And then finally, the happy hour that day is takeaways and next steps. So that's the agenda really quickly. I want to encourage everyone to go to wildernessstewardship.org/NWSI to learn more. Down at the bottom of the page, there is where you can register. Registration closes on April 30th, so please get those in as soon as possible. We do have the agenda. A draft of the agenda is posted on the website, so you can kind of see to kind of help you plan out your week of what's going on there as well. Let's see here. Yeah, so that's the website in a nutshell. We have some background on there. We will eventually have like more detailed class descriptions and instructor information on the website as well, but that's one of the things we're building on. So one of the ways that you can help, if that's what you're thinking, like, man, this is great, how can I help out with this great session? We are looking for folks to help us with hosting rooms, as either being a moderator, just sort of helping facilitate, welcome participants, help the presenters get going, and help them stay, remind them of their time when it comes time to wrap up. We're also looking for folks that are willing to maybe host Zoom rooms if you're more familiar with Zoom and can help with polls or breakout rooms and that kind of thing. That is what we're looking for help. Let's see here. I think that was what we had. So now I'm going to turn over to Q&A to see what folks might have had for any sort of questions.
Okay, well, thank you, Dusty and the rest of the panelists for presenting about the National Wilderness Skills Institute. This is a pretty fantastic opportunity for the wilderness community, both within the agencies and within the wilderness stewardship nonprofit community, to come and rub shoulders and get down deep in the weeds on wilderness stewardship, wilderness management issues. I think one of the big questions that people might have is, do they have to attend the whole thing? Can they just come in for one or two of the sessions? And could you explain a little bit, when they register, what the process is going to be like for choosing what sessions they're interested in? And you mentioned earlier they could potentially flip between sessions, but what's the anticipation? What do you want people to do?
Yeah, I'll go ahead and fill that one. So yeah, when you go into the registration form, it's basically like indicating which classes you are interested in. And I can share my screen again, and let me go ahead and spotlight so you can see it better. So when you go into register, it's just basic information, and then you're kind of clicking which ones you're interested in. And that really is all about helping us make sure we have rooms big enough to hold folks. I guess one of the things I should mention is that there are currently over 450 people registered for the National Wilderness Skills Institute. So that involves us making sure that we have rooms that can hold up to 400 people. And so that's really what's going on here. Yes, if you just want to attend one session and that's it, that's fine. You can do that. If you register or click these check boxes and decide that you want to maybe jump over to a different class instead, you can do that. We're not restricting participants to the specific classes that they register for. There's a lot of flexibility in there.
So Dusty, when you actually go about putting out the final agenda, will there be links sent to everybody for every session, or will there just be links sent for the sessions that you decide to join, that you sign up for?
There will be a document that has links to all of the sessions. And so each participant will get that entire document. So your individual link is not tied to an individual person. They're all tied to the classes. So
okay, yes. Great. Another question was, will there be a certificate at the end of the workshop? Can people document and record the number of sessions they have come up with, and are you anticipating any sort of completion certificate from attending the National Wilderness Skills Institute? I'll just throw out to any of
you know, certificates are always something people want, right? And we are not planning to issue any certificate for the National Wilderness Skills Institute right now. I mean, I don't think we've typically done that for our localized regional training. I think if you put it on your resume, it's still going to speak to people that you've attended it. And we'll see what the future holds. It'd be great to go that certificate route. Obviously, the crosscut saw session and potentially the leave no trace session. I guess I'm questioning that right now. Usually you get a certificate from Leave No Trace when you participate in one of their training sessions. In crosscut, you will be trained. I think we've moved away from certification language, but you'll have the qualifications to run a crosscut saw once you complete the online virtual session with us and then go into the field and complete the field portion.
Yeah, I think the question just came up about whether there would be a recognition or acknowledgement that somebody had attended the classroom session so that they could carry that with them to a field session, showing that they've had the classroom piece of it. And would just ask that you consider something like that, where it is a prerequisite requirement that they have some sort of acknowledgement that they've attended that
You mean
classroom
specifically the
session.
crosscut, Andy?
Yeah, specifically for the crosscut session, since that is a requirement for certification.
Yeah, we're working on a scenario where we can relay who attended, because that is the one that we're asking people to show up for all 4 days. So yeah, we're working on that scenario.
Okay, that'd be great. Will the sessions be recorded and available for viewing after the fact?
Yes, they will be recorded and linked to or hosted on the Society for Wilderness Stewardship website on the same page as the NWSI information.
That'll be a great resource for the future. That'll be a wonderful, I think, documented history to have. Let's see. Let me see if there's some other questions in here. Okay, we talked about the agenda, where it's at. When do you think the final agenda will be available on the website?
Right now, I'd say the agenda is pretty much like 90% settled. We just have maybe one class that may change titles here and there. And then we have maybe 2 others that are just waiting to confirm the presenters on. So the agenda is pretty well set right now. And so what we're doing in the background right now is starting to assign moderators, Zoom hosts, and Zoom rooms to it right now. Yeah, we don't perceive it as changing very much right now.
Okay. And so when do you think the final detailed instructor and presenter agenda will be available?
Yeah, we're going to start populating the website next week or the week after with the classroom descriptions with the presenter information.
Okay, so that will come out after the deadline for registration, unfortunately.
Yeah, unfortunately.
Okay, but it sounds like you've got some of the top names in the fields for each of these presentations, so it should be outstanding. You've got a lot of great presenters lined up already.
Hey, and
Yeah,
Randy,
we're really, go ahead.
Again, it's worth saying that although it might come out after the registration deadline, people can switch sessions at any point. So if for some reason another session catches their attention after they get more information, the only caveat to that is the crosscut saw session, as we said. You know, we're going to ask people to be in all 4 sessions for that, but the rest of the time, we're just trying to provide as much flexibility as we can.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so is there any thought about extending the registration deadline another week or 2? Is there a particular reason why you're cutting it off now, versus, you know, which is still 3 weeks in front of the workshop? And I'm saying that just because hopefully you get a big splash of publicity with this coffee hour recording, and might reach a slightly different audience with our publication of it.
I think we'll evaluate that next Friday and just kind of see where things are and go from there, Randy. Mostly we want to be in a place where, especially with Zoom capacity being one thing, that we have everything set up for success, and just having that information ahead of time is helpful. But if there's a demand for an extension, I think we'll discuss that next Friday when the core team gets together.
All right. Do you have a feel for the participants that are signed up right now as to where they're coming from? Agency, nonprofits, general public?
Yeah, we have.
Steve?
Yeah, I haven't dove into the data completely, but yes, we have over 450. Our early results show that it was an even mix between male and female, but we hadn't quite teased out agency versus partner. We were seeing a lot of interesting things, that we did see a lot of state and county governments also signing folks up. And then I think we're going to have to change the name to the International Wilderness Skills Institute, because we did have at least one person sign up from Austria. And so, yeah, we're still sort of diving into the data right now.
Okay, well, that sounds great. That sounds great. I'm not seeing any other questions from the audience, and we've pretty much used up our hour. So I guess if any of the panelists have any closing comments, any other encouragement about participation that they would like to share, we'll go ahead and kind of wrap things up.
I have a feeling we each have something to say, but hey, I'd just say thanks for hosting us here today, Randy. It's great to just get the word out, have some Q&A, think about what people are still wondering about, so we can adapt, so to speak. Yeah, I think the intent is to meet a need. And so we're going to continue to assess whether or not we're doing that. And we'll do a follow-up eval and an after-action review when we're done, and think about, what happened this year? Did it work? Is this something we want to invest in the future? And I think that we have a list of the core team members on the website. I'd encourage anyone with questions to reach out to any of us, especially Bill Hodge, and ask questions as needed.
All right, and Bill has heard this. I'm glad you mentioned the after action review. We wanted to make space available at the National Wilderness Workshop in November to kind of bring back an after action review, or a chance to kind of download the feedback you got from the sessions, what kind of people think about the model, and to offer an opportunity at the National Wilderness Workshop for further discussion about this kind of method for wilderness training. So we'll leave that with your panelists to think about and talk about, but we've made space on our agenda for that to happen.
Yeah, I think several of the core team will be attending, and we'll work on putting together a group who can share that report out.
Okay. So Bill, did you have any final comments? And John?
Same as Jimmy, thanks for having us. Enjoyed talking to you guys, and hoping maybe we, like you said, see a little surge of registration and reaches some more folks.
Yeah, same for me. Thanks for the time today. Super excited about having, closing in on 500 people registered for this. It speaks to that we are addressing a need. I think we have managed to put together a pretty first-class set of presenters for these trainings. And so we're excited to be able to make this available for our collective stewardship community.
Yeah, Dusty, did you have anything?
I'll just share that I was able to pull up some more of the registration data. We do have representatives from the Forest Service, BLM, Park Service, Fish and Wildlife Service, as well as the Bureau of Indian Affairs registered for the event as well. And it looks like there's over 100 organizations represented too across our registration process as well. But yeah, I'm looking forward to the event, looking forward to getting to know some more folks and having a good time. Yes, we're going to be learning a lot, but we're also going to try and have some fun, interactive sessions going on as well. So thanks.
Well, that's excellent. And count on our support here at the National Wilderness Stewardship Alliance. And yeah, if you need me participate as a session panelist, I'd be happy to do so. And with that, we'll go ahead and close the session off. I think we've had a pretty good conversation, and we'll look forward to sharing this message out with the rest of the wilderness community so that we can capture the rest of the folks that haven't yet signed up. And hopefully we can get you over 1,000 people signed up and make it a real interesting session to deal with. But no, this is great. And just as a reminder, our next NWSA webinar will be on, I believe it's scheduled for May. Oh, I gotta keep looking at the calendar. May 11th, and I will be sharing the results of our NWSA funding programs and kind of who is going to receive funding and help download folks that didn't receive funding, why they may not have, and help understand how to better be competitive in the future. And we'll look forward to talking with people again then. And then just put that reminder out that the National Wilderness Workshop is scheduled for the week of November 15th in Roanoke, Virginia. We have committed to having a face-to-face workshop this year. So we will be sending more details out shortly. Probably the 1st of June, we'll have a full program and agenda available for people that are interested in coming and continuing this training and conversations in wilderness stewardship. So looking forward to seeing everybody hopefully face-to-face in the fall. But with that, we'll go ahead and sign off. Thanks again, everybody, and appreciate our panelists as well. Everybody take care. Have a great weekend.